And what is up? Welcome in, GC Live fam. Wes Mitchell here. Chris Clark, Monday episode of the show. Our usual game recaps, thoughts, pretty much any of your feedback that you have on the game. You want to hear it, go ahead and throw it in the chat if you are already with us here live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. As we always tell you, though, YouTube probably the best way to watch the show. If you're listening on the podcast, we appreciate that as well, but definitely much more interactive version of the show if you can get on with us live. Chris, closing in on 12,000 subscribers on YouTube. That is awesome. Shout out to everybody for supporting the show. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you are watching us on YouTube. As always, this is brought to you by Clint Hammond, our good buddy, ClintHammond.com. He's with the Mortgage Network, 803-771-6933. If you're in the market for a new home or you're just curious about if you can get a new home at this point, give Clint a shout. He'll help you through that process. Chris, much different conversation this week than we were having exactly 7 days ago. South Carolina obviously coming off that loss to Missouri. A game going into this weekend that I think, Carolina fans always expect to beat Vandy. Like, that's sort of a given. I sensed a much more just the optimism, if you're going to call it cautious optimism, was much more on the cautious side of that scale. I feel like going into this game, still with the thoughts of that Missouri loss fresh in the fan base's minds. So, I kind of wondered what would it take to make fans happy. South Carolina gets a 38-27 win. Where do you think the collective fan base is off of this win? I feel like because it feels like Carolina controlled the game for the most part, they're a little bit, in general, more happy with 11-point win than maybe I would have thought going in.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. First of all, I think hopefully the collective fan base will let us know in the comments what they think about the game. I'm sure they will. We have some personalities who we appreciate here. I think because we saw offense, like we were talking about this earlier today, right, on the Gamecock Central Takeover on 107.5, people are hyper-focused on offense, like for good reason. When I watch sports in general, football, soccer, basketball, I like scoring. You want to see goals, you want to see touchdowns, you want to see homers in baseball. People are hyper-focused on the offensive side of the ball. And so, if South Carolina had won this game 56-45, probably a little more talk about the defense even than what we're hearing so far. But people have been like, ooh, 56 points, So I think the fact that South Carolina, not a perfect day by any means, but a game where it's Spencer Rattler's best game, right? You are missing Marshawn Lloyd, but you're still able to move the football. Spencer has a good game. Jaheim Bell gets his most touches. So I think there are a few things that happened in the game, within the game offensively, that made people happy. Now, is there rightfully so some talk about, the second half offensively, what we saw on defense for pretty much the entire game? Yes, but I think people are generally pretty satisfied because, look, you need to be happy with a win, a road win, even if it's Vandy. You just had a very poor performance last week in which you lost the football game. You're bowl eligible, you win. You still got some things you can improve on, but there are also some encouraging signs in some places too.
Yeah, so big picture, and, we try to not just repeat everything we say during the 107.5 show, try to make them two completely different shows. But, Chris, I did want to give, some of my big picture thoughts as maybe some framework for what we're going to go deeper into during the show. And like you said, man, road win in the SEC. It's 14 straight over Vanderbilt. I don't care how you get there. If you win 14 straight over a team from whatever division, conference, however you want to say it, that you were in, people playing by the same rules as you, if you beat them 14 straight years, you have done something right. Now, I know Carolina goes into each game with Vandy expecting to win. The fan base does. But, and there's been some where Carolina's had to escape. Look no further than last year. But if you find a way to win 14 straight, that's something to be applauded. I think that's across, the entire Muschamp era, the Beamer era through, 2 games with Vanderbilt, and goes all the way back into the Spurrier era prior to the stretch of 11 win seasons, prior to the SEC East Championship, so basically you're going all the way back, to 2008?
8, I think.
Yes.
And South Carolina West back-to-back losses that preceded this. I think it was 07 and 08. We talked about that the other day. 2017, I think they're ranked number 6. You start 6-1. They lost to Vandy in one of the worst games I've ever seen. 16-7, I think it was, at home.
That game was awful.
Probably worst game I've ever seen. And it really was. I mean, it's just so boring, just awful game. Go on to lose the next 6, bad, and then lost the following year. But after that, like you said, man, they've reeled off a nice stretch here against Vandy. So win's a win. Be happy with it.
Yeah. So, and I'll go back to one of our commenters, Greg. 13 wins in less than 2 years, and I think we've got to have some perspective about this whole thing. Are there things within the program? Are there things that South Carolina would love to do better? I think if, Shane Beamer was sitting on the show or sitting up to the bar having a drink or something, and he got his honest opinion, yeah, he would admit there's things we need to do better. And, the run game stuff on defense, I think it's a massive concern. And Chris, you've been preaching that all year long. And I think, there are still issues, but overall, you get to this point, you get to 13 wins already within the 2 years. You get a second straight bowl eligibility, some nice wins along the way. And now you have an opportunity. I don't want to say it like you're playing with house money, but at the same time, you're not going to be favored in any of the final 3 games. But you've got 3 shots at pulling an upset and making this thing potentially really special if you can steal one of the next 3. So you've put yourself in this position. You took some pressure off of these next few games, and did what you were supposed to do at Vanderbilt. So I've got, let's see, let me finish them off here. I didn't put many single players into this. Is more big picture. The one single player I did put was Darius Rush because, that's my guy. I'm biased, but I think it's about time we start talking a bit more about Darius Rush as a key player on this team and one of their best overall players, as opposed to just, he's a starter. No, I think he's been much better than that. PFF has him as the highest graded player on defense among the guys who are in the regular rotation. And then just playmakers all around on offense. Juice Wells made plays. Jaheim Bell was solid stepping in at running back. Carryon Joyner made some things happen. Just overall offensive skill guys. The bad, couldn't put Vandy away. I felt like some of the running game was smoke and mirrors. You had to, use some reverses to get some big plays. Although, golly, man, Xavier Legette looks natural running the football in the open field. And then the ugly, the run defense and the penalties, man. I just felt like if they could have gotten out of their own way on the penalties, that they really, even with the pretty bad run defense, they could have put this thing away, but it was just very disjointed. It felt like penalty after penalty, which is, to give them credit, that's very uncharacteristic for this group. They have been going back to, what would you say, last year, probably the first 3-4, I don't know where the cutoff point is. Remember how much they struggled with penalties early on, and Beamer was like, we're going to get this fixed. Like, this is on me. We're going to get this fixed. Credit due. Final half of last year and then the first half plus of this year, they've been fantastic in not penalizing teams or not being penalized. And that was not the case on Saturday, obviously.
Yeah, it was not. It was ugly. It was kind of like watching an SEC basketball game. Like there's a foul like every play. That part was ugly. Now, South Carolina was able to, at times, Wes, I mean, there was one touchdown drive in particular. It seems like, and I'm exaggerating here, but it seemed like they were getting penalized every other play. and were getting behind the sticks, but still managed to move the football, which was a positive and ended up scoring. But that might have been the Josh Van catch or the Juice Wells touchdown catch, one of those. But yeah, that part was, something that is probably an aberration. Like if you're just going off of what we've seen and statistically, certainly hope that doesn't become a trend. The good news, if you're looking for kind of some hope and the silver lining, is that so far it hasn't been. Now, one thing that has been in your ugly category has been a trend is the run defense. We have seen this team struggle running stopping the run at times this year. And we've really seen them struggle on the perimeter, whether it's run game or what teams use as the extension of the run game with, some little short passes out to the flats or to the perimeter. South Carolina's had some trouble at times getting off blocks or having their linebackers chase those plays down. When you put that forward, Wes, you think about the next 3 games, right? You think about Florida and Anthony Richardson. Shane Beamer saying after the game, he's probably very excited about next week with what he's seen, with what he saw against Vandy. And certainly South Carolina's had some issues with mobile quarterbacks this year. Anthony Richardson he is definitely that. You think about Tennessee, the amount of just easy throws that they can get their receivers, including those quick throws out to the perimeter where they're stacking guys out there. That's alarming. And you think about Clemson, West, they're struggling offensively to some degree, but we saw Clemson run the ball almost at will against South Carolina last year. And so that becomes kind of a concerning trend, right? And so I think you did a really good job of breaking it down in those categories, because there really were things in that game, good, bad, and ugly. Like we really did see some of all of that in this game.
Yeah, and maybe I potentially could have put, I believe, maybe one more individual under good. And for me, that would be Spencer Rattler. I mean, I thought as far as controlling the game or being in control of the game, you could say, not taking off. There was an early play, I think, where they were backed up in the goal line, sort of, where he had all day. And I think his internal clock just sort of said, I got to get out of here. But in reality, he still had even more time. But for the most part, I thought Spencer hung in there, stepped up in the pocket when he needed to, delivered the football, seemed to know where the ball was supposed to go. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and I have not honestly made it through my rewatch yet. I will complete that tonight. Chris, I don't remember any or many just misses where I was like, man, he just missed that guy. Delivered the ball with confidence. I thought he was playing confidently. There was constant communication when he was going to the sideline. It looked like it looked like there was constant communication with Jaheim Bell and Montario Hardesty as well, with obviously Jaheim pretty much just being a running back this week. I thought that was interesting. I think they would have honestly this week left Jaheim out there a little bit more than they even did, but it seemed like they were almost sort of coaching him up as the game went along, because that's not a position that he has played. So it was like, let's get him on the sideline, keep him, engaged with the running backs coach, and sort of go from there. But Spencer, PFF agrees, like they graded him very highly. And something I hadn't looked at yet, Chris, but you mentioned earlier on the other show, PFF, I'm guessing, is where you got this, but no turnover-worthy plays. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And highest NFL quarterback rating of the season, PFF uses that as their metric. You're right, man. I'm trying to go through my head. I don't think I can recall any just misses from Rattler too. They did miss one more potential explosive on the flea flicker, but that was a ball where pretty tightly covered. Xavier Legette almost came down with a great throw, but I think like you saw a kind of a little piece of everything Spencer can do, like everything that we thought. Now, everything that we're saying is viewed through the lens of Vanderbilt's not very good. Like we know they're not that good. Defensively, they're not that good. But still, you're over there playing on the road. You just had your worst game of the season against a good defense in Missouri. It's time to rebound. And so I think you start at the baseline. I've been screaming all year about making the baseline of just not turning the football over offensively. We saw just one, right? So We saw Spencer scrambling out of the pocket at a time where it made sense to do so and making that throw to Josh Vann in the back of the end zone. That's one where his guy's catching it or nobody's catching it. Great play. We saw him stand in the pocket and connect on a deep ball. Another thing that we've been kind of probably thinking we would see more of this year. Clean pocket, stayed in, stepped up, accurate, great throw to Xavier Legette right at the goalpost. We saw the throw to Juice Wells. I've been clamoring for a little bit more of, hey, get your guys in one-on-one opportunities over the middle, stand in the pocket, complete the throw. We saw that on the ball to Juice Wells. And there were others. I mean, even the 15-yard scramble, that Spencer had in taking care of the football. So, yes, poor defense, but I thought a really, really good game from 7 and something that you would hope that they can take and build on.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the few defenses they're going to play in the conference where they didn't have to have a great rushing attack in order to be able to drop back and feel pretty good about throwing the football without there being a lot of pressure, in the QB's face. Against like these better defenses Carolina plays, they have to be able to run the football. And if they can't, they're going to struggle. They're going to be in 3rd and long. Against Vanderbilt, they just don't have the pass rushers, I think, that the other guys have. And they don't have the athletes, let's be honest, at defensive back either to just match up for very long. So when Spencer was able to sit back or buy a little bit of time, Vanderbilt just not equipped. I feel like some of Carolina's talent was really able to kind of actually shine a little bit this week. And you could see some of that athleticism that is there. And, I thought the, people have been talking about scripts a lot this year, which that's been overanalyzed. If you ask me, every team runs scripts to an extent, I think, but the script off the bat went perfect. I mean, I imagine every single time a coach puts together their script for a game, what would you think? Probably 9 out of 10 of them, you have to make some adjustment on the first drive. Like probably pretty rare that just every single play hits the way you sort of hoped and wanted it to. But the script was on point in this game and allowed Carolina to get off to a really good start. First, obviously, Darius Rush interception on the first defensive possession for South Carolina. But then they showed a little bit of everything on the first offensive script. Some throws to the flat, couple of runs. I was glad to see them actually throw like a quick out, a couple little stick routes in this game where you're just getting the ball, 4 or 5 yards down the field and making something happen. And then you hit the ball over top on play action with a pulling guard on the post route to Legette. Beautiful throw there. I mean, he was wide open. That was a beautiful throw too.
It was. And even going to later, man, I mean, we were looking at that play earlier today, the DeCarrion Joyner, get some more run. And I mean, credit where it's due. That was a really cool play. That was a really cool play because who was the back on that play?
CBS.
CBS. So CBS is out there. Looks like it's going to be a direct snap. You shift the guys over. You got like a little misdirection there. And I mean, Shane Beamer talked about it, that play, and some of the players talked about it too. The goal on that play is to throw a deep ball that apparently they had hit in practice. That one was triple covered. I think we saw on the all-22. Austin Stogner was wide open, but it was kind of fortunate that DeCarrion didn't see him out there in the flat because he kind of extended the play and finds Juice Wells. And then you made a great point. I mean, this offense is best when your guys who are individual talents can shine. You have to be able to run the football, sure, but it's been clicking when Juice Wells gets the ball in space. Spencer Rattler can improvise and do Spencer things. Marshawn Lloyd, who didn't play, but obviously when he's featured in this offense, Jaheim Bell, like that's when the offense is at the best. And so sure, it's made easier, quote unquote, when you're playing teams like Vanderbilt, but still they found a way. And some of it was schemed up and some of it was just our guy's better than yours. And I think that is kind of the genesis of what is a good game plan. When you play teams like Georgia, for instance, you're going to have to meet in the middle somewhere. There are some things that are going to be baseline that you're going to have to do well to win that game. And then you're going to have to scheme some things up, probably even more so than against like Vandy. And we saw the Georgia one didn't go so well, but this one did. I mean, I thought the game plan made a lot of sense, and the players obviously executed it well, and they avoided, of course, to go back to that well, they avoided turning the football over, which is, a recipe for losing a game to a team like Vanderbilt on the road.
Yeah, and I saw SEC Network / ESPN stole your turnover stat.
They did.
Blatantly ripped
Blatant.
you off there.
There was no like credit at the bottom. They have a track record for these things.
Yeah,
Very
completely ripped you off, man. Very disappointing. But you're right. I mean, turnovers were the difference in this game. I think Carolina wins the game, regardless. But I think obviously if it was reversed and Carolina was turning it over and Vandy wasn't, then they lose the game. And a lot of their stops, man, that was kind of the scary part from a Carolina perspective. A lot of their stops were by turnovers, was via turnovers. So it's kind of like, man, there really weren't a lot of punts forced by the Carolina defense, which I think is obviously concerning. But I think it's concerning big picture. But again, you take this win how you can get it, and the offense, hey, yeah, it was against Vandy. They haven't been very good defensively, but at the same time, Chris, I think you also got to look at it like Carolina executed. I mean, they've played some bad defenses before and have not had the output that they had this week. I mean, go back to last year. Not that this is remotely the same team offensively as it was last year, but I mean, you score a late touchdown against Vandy to get to 21 at home. You go to ECU and just struggle to move the ball at all in that game. So, yeah, it is Vandy. You have to take everything and put it into perspective. This is just as much about sort of the matchup, I think, as it being like, oh, Carolina found something, that is necessarily going to be repeatable against everybody. But you also have to give the credit. They found a way to get the ball to these different guys. They found a way to implement to carry on to where he could make an impact, I think. And, that I think some people, especially with like Jaheim Bell playing a good bit more, some of that was necessary because of Marshawn Lloyd, obviously. But I think there are some people who are like, well, wait, why did it take this long to get Jaheim the ball? And I think that is a valid question.
Sure.
Are we at the point, and I know not everybody agrees with me on Jaheim, but I mean, I think there is a case that Jaheim is the second best running back on this football team, especially right now when CBS very clearly has not been himself this year.
And huge credit to CBS, man. I mean, he had that injury, and I'm like, he's done. Like, he's walking off the field, takes a really long time to walk off, very gingerly, and then he's somehow back in the game, and he runs for a 50-plus yard touchdown. I mean, huge credit to him for gutting that out. And he very clearly has not been 100% all year, which you feel for him. And, I mean, tough kid, to come in and continue playing. But I do think you're right, man. I mean, Jaheim Bell, when you look at the stat line, what he did rushing the football, it wasn't eye-popping. If you've gone through the whole year and, like, it's running back Jaheim Bell and that's his stat line in the game, it's kind of like a shrug, right? But this is his first week. They literally put him in the running back room with Montario Hardesty, and he goes through the whole practice week, and he is a running back. So it's a pretty big adjustment. You're not just doing a few gadget plays. You're running, I'm turning around and handing you the ball, and now you're a running back. So it's a lot different. You mentioned earlier, rightly, that, they had's not a great word. I mean, they did, because they felt like they needed to put in some different things to get the running game going. Even if it's a little pop pass, kind of an extension of your run game. But one of the things that they did do was they were going to run the football inside, especially with CBS only getting 3 carries. That was going to be Jaheim Bell. Juju is more of an outside runner. You needed somebody who could get you some short yards, pound it in there. And Jaheim did a nice job with that. There were a few runs where not a whole lot of daylight. He was able to get him, a 3-yard run is fine inside. There's nothing wrong with that if you're protecting the football, and he was able to get him that. So I thought, hey, even though it's not a big explosive play, he didn't really have any of those in the game. what you saw from him in terms of how he was used on Saturday was perfectly fine.
Well, I think you can kind of you can maybe look ahead a little bit and say, look, if Lloyd, if Lloyd is back healthy, obviously, hopefully at some point this season and close to 100%, then I think there's a nice little balance there in that these are two guys that have very different skill sets. With, you could have Jaheim, get him the ball a little bit more, running the football as a bigger back, and then obviously Marshawn Lloyd, a guy that can do it all, but has explosiveness, ability to make people miss, ability to run to the outside. And they're really going to need both those guys, I think, to have some big games if they're going to have any chance to knock off any of their next three opponents. So it's going to be tough, but this is a Florida defense. I know we'll get into them all week long. Statistically, Florida has not been a great defense, so there could be some opportunities. It is funny how confidence and seeing things go well can affect an offense. So maybe that's something, even going into a defense, it's not going to be as bad. It's not going to be as much of a talent deficiency as you saw going up against Vandy, but a Florida defense that I think South Carolina will have some opportunities to make some plays this week. We'll put it like that. But what else did you notice or that you want to hit on there from this past game? We got a mention of Tonka in the chat. Tonka is awesome. Guy Kroger is awesome.
Dude, all right, yeah, so let's go there. Special teams. I also have a special teams stat that's not even semi-related. It is related to USC. Dude, Tonka, what can this guy not do on the special teams front? They're going to, like, one of the biggest storylines left for this season for the next 4, because USC will have a bowl game now, we know for sure. What is next for him on getting the football in the open field? We have a fumble recovery. We have the helmetception. We have the trap play, running the football in for the 2-point conversion. And we have the over the shoulder. Dude, how many receivers would have dropped that football? Dude is hanging all over him. No flag, of course, because we don't know what pass interference is or targeting or anything like that.
How was that not a flag?
Well, I think that I don't know how these things are determined anymore. It's really bad. But anyway, he catches that ball, shakes the guy off, to get some yards after contact. I'm just really curious what they can do. I'm sure Pete Limbo in his library of plays has some more stuff, but I'm curious. But Kai Kroger's been awesome, man. He just missed two punts that were butted up against the goal line and just went in to the end zone. I think one of them was like a 69-yard punt still. He's been excellent holding. Mitch Jeter, probably one of the most underrated things about this team. You lose Parker White. Everybody knows Jeter's talented, but he's locked in a battle preseason with Alex Herrera. Who's going to win that job? Maybe Jeter. He's scholarship. He's got a big leg. But how will he perform when the lights come on? Well, he's done fine. He's 9 for 9 this season. I'm sorry, Mitch. I'm sure I've jinxed you on your next field goal. 2 for 2 from 50 plus. He's hit everything else. 2 extra points are the lone, issues so far in terms of kicking. But the kicking game's been great, man. And those 2 guys that they brought in and South Carolina did in the 2020 class have been really, really good. And then Kai obviously can always be an asset for you. My special team stat, before I forget it, Wes. Unfortunately, South Carolina is no longer the leader nationally in blocked punts. But the new leader, this is the type of thing where if you're a Gamecock fan, you say, I'm not even mad.
Wait, I know where you're going with this.
Where are we going?
Is it your Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
A fine institution. It has always been. They are now the nation's leader with 6. And of course, coming against the Clemson Tigers, a punt block that resulted in a touchdown. So Gamecock fans are not even mad about it. Pete Limbo probably not even mad about it.
He may have drawn that play up.
He might have sent it to him. Hey, guys, why don't you try this?
Man, hey, when I think it was number 10, when number 10 picked that ball up, my man was hitting that X button boost. Like, dude was going. Like, he was gone.
And who was the dude? I mean, I should know this. Who was what is it, number 20 for Notre Dame, who picked off like every pass that Clemson threw in that game? Had the pick six, had the other interception. My guy was balling.
Yeah, he took that thing back from deep too.
Yeah.
Smelled the end zone. It felt like, I don't know. I had the whole 2 TV set up. Like, I dragged the TV from the living room or from the bedroom into the living room. It looked like Clemson people after that pick just kind of relaxed, because the pick that ended up being the pick six was pretty deep in Clemson territory. And the Notre Dame guy was like, nah, man, we taking this thing to
It's
the
about to be a
house.
touchdown. Yeah, what do y'all think?
Yeah, that was cool. That was impressive. Good for Notre Dame. That's a big win for them, man. They had some struggles early on.
Yeah.
Really big win for them. But wow, how about 6 though? That's
6. And you know another funny, hard to believe stat is Rutgers is tied with South Carolina with 5 punt blocks. I don't know if they maybe had one against Michigan. That was a tight game early on. I think Michigan was losing at halftime to Rutgers.
yeah. I think they were losing going like part of the way into the third. They were down 17-14, I think.
Yeah. Michigan woke up and ended up winning that one going away. So kind of a weird weekend, right? Clemson loses. Ohio State struggled. I mean, I saw the wind, Wes, in that one. That looked like a miserable game to be at. But Ohio State struggled with a very bad Northwestern team. Alabama loses, which I'm not surprised by, really.
Did everybody? I'm asking you, Chris, but everybody in the chat as well. Did y'all watch the like? I know it was during South Carolina game. Did y'all watch the finish to Alabama and LSU? Because that man, when Brian Kelly, I'm not a Brian Kelly fan at all.
Right.
At all. But my man has some stones, like we're going for 2, like, no hesitation. Let's go. Let's go win this right now. That takes some guts. And I think it was the right call, man. It's easy to say that because it worked. But as good as Bryce Young is, and, Alabama had not played. It seemed like they were a little out of sync offensively. You have a chance to just go win the game and not have to do back and forth and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't help but think, if that's me, would I rather be on offense, needing the 2-point conversion to win the game, or on defense, praying I can stop him to win the game, or keep it tied? So I think it was just like, my guy, Jaden Daniels also is a great running threat, which makes it very difficult to defend down near the goal line. Great call, put him out on the edge, and great opportunity, or great decision for him, like very quick decision just to get the ball out there. So I know it's a South Carolina show, obviously, but that was that game. That was what college football is all about. Like, that was an incredible finish. And hey, LSU at night, when that place is packed, you're going to earn a win if you're going to leave that place with a win.
Dude, I mean, and Bryce Young is a wizard, but Jaden Daniels, how about that kid? I mean, he was fairly good at Arizona State. He's got to LSU. They've done a really good job of harnessing his talent and developing him. Yeah, some neat stuff on that final play, man. A lot of people were going, oh, that, and it did. It took some stones, but I saw the point made, and it's a good one. You're going for 2 the next overtime anyway. If you got your best play there, run it. Because next time out, you're going to have to go for 2 anyway. They run that play. Brian Kelly actually noted that that was the same play when he was at Notre Dame, when they played, I think, number 1 FSU or number 2 FSU. Ran that same play, hit it, got called for offensive pass interference, which was probably a good call. I mean, I remember seeing that play. So they ran the same play, and I think Jaden Daniels had like 4 options on that play. So obviously he picked the right one. Mason Taylor, son of NFL great Jason Taylor, catching that ball close. Woo! Caught it behind the goal line and kind of had to fall in. But yeah, that was an awesome game, man. A lot of fun. Good weekend of college football for sure.
Definitely. Let's see. Did you see the end of Auburn, Mississippi State?
That was wild too. We didn't even talk about Tennessee getting destroyed. But yeah, I saw that. That was crazy.
My man kicked the line drive base hit right off of the up man on the kickoff.
He did.
And gets it back. I got to be honest. I actually felt bad for Auburn after that happened. I was like, man, that of all the ways. Anyway, we're going to get back to South Carolina before we close this thing out. Tell you what, I've got the mic is fixed now. There's no more tapping on the laptop. You don't have to make comments about that anymore. The next thing is going to be a squeaky, you know what, chair that keeps squeaking when I move and talk. But I do want to hit one comment from Lee on Facebook. We have disappointed him, apparently. It says, I'm a little confused. It sounds like I think that's me and you, Chris, are basically saying if we won the game. Sure, we had some turnovers. That's part of the game. I doubt any other team would say we won because they were bad. I guess they here is Vandy. No motivation coming from this conversation. Hopefully the coaches will do this differently. Very disappointing. Don't know where to start there. I will start with, first of all, the coaches definitely will point out to the players things that need to be fixed and things that need to be better. Our job isn't to motivate the players. We're just talking about the game. And the other thing I'll say, Chris, is that, yes, we were talking about turnovers because, for one, Chris has been on the turnover train for all season long, but rightfully so. When South Carolina has created turnovers, they have won those games. When they have gotten beaten in the turnover battle, they have lost those games. Statistically, it almost without fail. I mean, look at their wins and the turnover margin in those games, and then look at their losses and the turnover margin in those games. So statistically, it is that important for South Carolina. And also, we have fully given credit to South Carolina's offense for executing, and even brought up the fact that they did a lot more on Saturday against a pretty bad defense, but a lot more than they've done in the past against bad defenses. But we're also not going to just blow smoke and tell you this means everything is fixed when football is a game of matchups. It's about who you were playing on that given week. It's about, can you take advantage if you have the matchups to your advantage, or can you not? And I think you give credit to South Carolina for taking advantage of having the edge in some of these matchups. They haven't always done that. You give them tons of credit for that, while also acknowledging, hey, they're a 9-point underdog going into this Florida game for a reason.
Yeah, we opened the show by saying it is a win and you need to be happy with it because it's not easy to win. We talked about how it's not easy to win on the road. But Shane Beamer himself, when Lee's talking about hopefully the coaches will do it differently, right after the game, he's talking about how ugly a lot of it was, the penalties, how they're going to have a lot to correct. So in some ways, it's not much different than even what we're saying. You're right, Wes. I mean, look at the wins and losses. 3-0 turnover margin to Georgia, 3-0 turnover margin to Arkansas, 2-0 in Missouri. They lose those games. The other ones, Kentucky, A&M, they're even. This one, they win at 4-1. It makes a huge difference because South Carolina is objectively, not even subjective, they are objectively not at the point as a program where they can go in and turn the football over 3 times and not gain any turnovers and just beat teams left and right. They're just not going to do that. So that's why, I mean, Wes at the beginning of the show had good, bad, ugly. There was some of all of that. The reality is, if the run defense is as poor as it was on Saturday, wins are going to be hard to come by. And that's not a controversial statement it just kind of is what it is. So yeah, it's okay to recognize how good it is to win. But when you look at this team's best offensive performances, even SC State, Charlotte, Vandy, that's 3 worst defenses they played. And so it's okay to recognize the good that was done in there, but also to properly contextualize it. You don't need to expect South Carolina scored 38 against Vandy. watch out Florida, Clemson, and Tennessee. I mean, you would hope that they can carry some of these things forward, but it's certainly not a guarantee.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens next. We'll have all week long, Chris, to break down this Florida game, and we'll definitely have a Florida guest later on this week, an excellent Florida On3 site that does a fantastic job of covering those guys. Already looking forward to that, man. That's one of my favorite parts of the show, is being able to bring y'all some insight on South Carolina's opponents, from the other sideline. But we're about out of time for today. We're going to be a little bit short. Chris, you're heading over. By the way, hey, congrats to women's soccer. SEC tournament champions. By the way, Chris, I don't know if you remember this or if you were paying attention. I guaranteed to the crowd at the GC kickoff party that women's soccer was going to win a national title before Shelly Smith left. And then I handed her the mic. But that's a lot of pressure. But that program is pretty special. Like, they do a phenomenal job. So, Shelly Smith, Jamie Smith, Marnie Merritt, that whole crew, they're fantastic. I know you know infinitely more about soccer than I do, but what did you think of the tournament victory this weekend?
Yeah, it was outstanding, man. They beat a really good Alabama team who's been one of the best in the country this year. Alabama, I mean, they had players littered on the all SEC list. I think their goalkeeper was like the goalkeeper of the year. So Carolina, one of their players scored her first goal of the season. Pretty big one. And then Heather Hens, who's been great in goal all year, and Abby Hugo kind of combining for a final save with like a minute left. That was outstanding. So, yeah, really good job. Be heading over there later. NCAA tournament selection show, I think, starts at about 4 p.m. Eastern today on the NCAA website. But there's a little watch party for the players over there to find out their destiny in the NCAA tournaments. We're going to go check that out, see if they can make another run. Last time South Carolina was in the College Cup, I believe 2017, and getting all the way to the end. So, and by the way, Wes, before we close out, before you tell the people about Larry, Tennessee game, several people asked, 7 or 7:30 at night inside Williams-Brice Stadium.
Yep. So night game for sure. After this weekend's games, they will announce the TV network. It'll be ESPN or SEC network. 7 o'clock kick, 7:30 kick. Not really a whole lot of difference between the two. So either way, another night game. Gamecocks undefeated this year in night games. So we'll see if they can pull the mammoth upset. But before that, South Carolina, Florida, 4 p.m. in the Swamp this Saturday. Got to tell you real quick about our friends at Liberty Tax, 803-462-5576. Appreciate Larry for being a sponsor of our show all year long. And tax season is right around the corner. And I promise you, our local friends here at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will help walk you through the tax process. Not fun, never easy, but they can make that very, very simple for you. 803-462-5576. That's all Chris and I have for today. Appreciate everybody, as always, joining in. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Follow us on your podcast platforms. And Chris and I will be back later this week. Mike Yuva on Talking Tuesdays, Tuesday night at 7. For Chris, I'm Wes. We'll see you soon.